Good morning, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be with all of you here. Good morning to my colleagues from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, from the Ministry of Economy Institute, and from our NGO partners. Thank you very much to all of you as well for agreeing to be part of this first panel. And then to the rest of you, really, there's not a lot that we need to be saying from this end of the room. This consultation today is all about you and hearing your voices. And all I want to do is to perhaps give you a little bit of background to give you a sense of what's happening outside of Belarus and the rest of the world related to these post-2015 development agenda consultations. This process is actually a very interesting one, because when the Millennium Development Goals were negotiated and decided on, there was some consultation, but it was not nearly as extensive or in terms of hearing people's voices. It was governments and policymakers, international civil servants like myself, who sat in different rooms and basically negotiated the compact. Of course, there were voices, there were NGOs and others, but it was not nearly as extensive as the consultative process that we are engaging in now to come up with a new development framework after the MDGs. So at this point, more than 300,000 people have contributed their ideas on what should happen post-2015 through this global conversation. This includes about 130,000 people who have contributed online. Somewhere around 100,000 people have logged on to the My World survey. Perhaps some of you have done that here in this room, to contribute their views. In fact, Belarus has done quite well in the past few weeks. I think we have well over 1,000 participants in the My World survey already. These national consultations that we're having, like we're having in Belarus, are complemented by 11 thematic consultations globally in important areas such as water, health, education, and so on. In addition to that, we also have regional consultations. So these national consultations will feed in to countries from the region coming together, and there will be different regional consultations. One of those regional consultations, an important event, will be here in Minsk in May, which is being led by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the government of Belarus, but with the participation of the United Nations family, civil society, and others. An interesting element or an interesting fact about these national consultations, both here in Belarus and outside, is that we have tried, governments, the United Nations and others have tried very hard to include voices of people who are not usually heard when policy is being developed at the macro level. So for example, in India, the consultation is designed to include a number of different constituencies. Civil society, which of course is very strong in India, but also trade unions, industry representatives. In Iran, parent-teacher associations are involved, health workers, social workers, student unions. In Peru and Ecuador, children, women, indigenous people, grassroots leaders from the Amazon region. And here in Belarus, we've invited children, we've invited people living with disabilities, people living with HIV, the elderly specifically, women and men separately but together as well. We will also be having consultations with former prison inmates. I mean, these are voices that you would not typically hear in the context of making macro policy within countries or globally. The quality of discussions that have been taking place around the world have been quite ambitious. They've been very inspiring. And I think one thing is particularly clear to all of us who've been involved in the process, that we as public officials, whether we are international civil servants or government officials, we need to understand that people not only want to help set their own development agenda, but they want to participate in the process. They want to ensure that the benefits of development reach out to the most vulnerable and most marginalized people around the world. That is a very clear message that we're getting from the global consultations that we have. So let me just wrap up by telling you a couple of quick things. What are these consultations telling us so far? Because this is an ongoing process. What's happened, what are the messages, the key messages that are coming from all these consultations around the world? And also, what are we hearing here in Belarus through some of these preliminary discussions that we've had? First of all, globally, people are saying that the MDGs are important, the Millennium Development Goals are important, but they're not enough. So, reducing poverty, access to education, good health, clean water, equality between women and men, these are still high in terms of people's priorities for a development agenda. These were the MDGs essentially. They've recognized the need to reduce hunger, malnutrition, ensure that natural resources are protected and that global partnerships are continued for development. So these are all part of the MDGs, and they're talking about MDGs being important. But at the same time, they're saying this is not enough. They want to also make sure that there is more responsive governance around the world within countries. And secondly, people are saying to us that the MDGs are overly focused on quantitative results and not enough on qualitative results. So for example, on education, we are being told that school enrollment is not sufficient. The quality of education that students who are enrolled in these schools receive are equally, if not more important. And then finally, they're telling us that one of the things that the MDGs and the MDG reports and monitoring, etc., tends to forget is that, you know, if you focus on the numbers, it doesn't really tell you the real picture in terms of inequalities. In some countries, growing inequalities. So you might think that 99% of the people have access to clean water and health services and education, but that 1% that doesn't have access, those are probably the ones who are going to always be disadvantaged. And so the focus on this, on statistics and numbers doesn't show us the widening gap between the haves and the have-nots. We're only focused on the fact that more people have and less people don't have. But the gap in some countries between the haves and the have-nots are increased. The gaps are increased. And in Belarus, it's not that much different. The kinds of concerns or priorities that have been voiced through the preliminary consultations that we've had pretty much reflect the kind of views that many people around the world have expressed, especially in other middle-income countries. The national consultations in Belarus started only in February, and as part of these consultations we've had 9 focus groups, these different types of groups that I mentioned. We've also had in 10 cities with the support of UNICEF, representatives of children and youth councils speaking to us about the kind of world they want to see in the future. I mentioned the My World Global Survey that is going on at the moment. The website is in 6 official languages. As of yesterday, we had 1,411 respondents from Belarus out of the 100,000 or so worldwide. So for those of you who have not participated in that My World survey, I would encourage you to do so, and also to get the word out to other people, because your voices will really count this time. This formal process of consultations will conclude sometime in May, but it is an ongoing process. And I think what we start here now, ensuring that people's voices are heard in trying to come up with development agendas globally, in trying to ensure that the most vulnerable, the most disadvantaged participate in the process of their own development, is one that we can learn from, and we must continue beyond the post-2015 development agenda. So I wish you good luck in your discussions and deliberations. Don't be shy. I'm sure you're not. Say what you mean and what you really want this world to look like in the coming years. We have many challenges. But if we stand together, I'm certain we will be able to face it. From my side, I will give you an unequivocal commitment that what you've said, what you will continue to say, will be reflected in the way that the United Nations will work to help you, all of you, the people of Belarus, the government, civil society, the private sector, and others. We're here to make your world better, but the way you would like it to be. Thank you very much.